USC has a surprise in its final depth chart before the season opener. Shohei Ohtani rediscovers his curveball, and we finally have a reason as to why Max Muncy is the real linchpin of the Dodger lineup. Good morning. I'm James, and this is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It is August 29, 2025. Welcome back to the home office. By the time you see this clip, I'm going to be on a plane flying east for work. A lot of time on the plane, which sucks, but so be it. Because if you like being in the know about LA sports, this is the place to be. Feel free to click and clack the like button. Click and clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop an update. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist, and by all means comment. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a quick look at the scoreboard. There were no games involving LA teams yesterday, but today, Arizona's in town. They're going to play the Dodgers at 7, and Indiana is at the Sparks. That game will also be at 7. So with that out of the way, what do you say we get to the news? Yesterday, I spent a lot of time chit-chatting on this little channel. We released previews for both USC and UCLA football, in addition to the daily update. One thing I did not do in those updates, though, was post a depth chart because both coaches have been restricting what the press can see during practice. They've been restricting a lot of information, and this matters in some areas. For example, third wide receiver over at USC. We know all about Jacoby Lane. We know all about Makai Lemon. But there were 9 other randos fighting for that last spot. So, who had their money on Tanook Hines? Sure as hell wasn't me. I mean, a freshman? How often does that happen? Spoiler, not much. He is the first so-called true freshman to start in a season opener at wide receiver for USC since Drake London back in 2019. The guy before that, a few years prior, Juju Smith-Schuster. Remember him? It's pretty decent company if you can slip past that velvet rope, you got to admit. Now, Hines brings speed. He's not just a speed guy, but he brings a lot of speed. His 40 time out of high school was terrific. And this is going to provide balance to USC's offense because Lemon is considered a terrific route runner. Lane is revered for his ability to compete for the ball. So you have each wide receiver that excels in a particular facet of an offense. Variety. You want that diversification. As for former USC players, linebacker Easton Mascarenas-Arnold, he wasn't drafted, but through sheer force of will, which is why USC took him from Oregon State in the first place, through sheer force of will, he has made Cleveland's roster as an undrafted free agent. This makes 4 former USC players to reach the NFL this year, along with Jonah Monheim of Jacksonville and running back Woody Marks and safety Jalen Smith, both of whom are over in Houston. Athletic director Jennifer Cohen doubled down on something that, honestly, not to toot my own horn, but it's honestly something that only I have been carping about for months. That keeping USC versus Notre Dame totally on Notre Dame's terms is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Now, for months, the national press, who has had it in for Lincoln Riley ever since he pulled a guy's press credential, the national press, spurred on by the social medias, been falsely labeling the Trojans a bunch of cowards for not kneeling to the Irish's every single whim to keep the Battle of the Jeweled Shillelagh alive. The Irish over there, they're acting like a bunch of hurt little victims. We are trying so hard to keep this rivalry alive. Meanwhile, USC stayed mostly silent. I was the one guy out there, the one guy saying that it's totally insane to ask the Trojans to make that many cross-country flights late in a season. Now, Cohen finally admitted it. She let that cat scurry out of the bag. Quote, "It's not very typical that a P4 school would travel back and forth across the country for a non-conference game in the middle of October. Show me who else is doing that and doing the kind of travel we're doing. It's a cool tradition to play at the end of the year, but then those are back-to-back rivalry games with a conference championship. And our opponent doesn't play in a conference championship. They have a lot more flexibility in scheduling than we do," unquote. Exactly. So you might be sitting there going, well, gee, why doesn't Notre Dame not use that flexibility if they want to keep the rivalry so bad? It's because the Trojans game usually is like one of two difficult games for Notre Dame on their schedule. They lose that in September, their season's done, and they know it. They would rather wait to the end of the season, having beaten up on a bunch of cupcakes throughout the course of the year, while USC goes and plays one East Coast game after another. Duh. So maybe, just maybe, you kind of want to negotiate to try to get something on your terms. Just saying, guys. And I want to thank Ms. Cohen for basically not leaving me out in the cold for months and months at a time anymore. Very cold out there. Let me know what you think, of course, in the comments thread. 2 nights ago at the Ravine, Shohei Ohtani pitched 5 innings, struck out 9 on his own bobblehead night. Okay, of course, nobody really cared if you were like trying to hoard that bobblehead just so you could try and pitch it on eBay for like $5,000. Trying to get generational wealth from one souvenir. For those of us who actually appreciate what happens on the field, understand 5 innings is going to be his ceiling for the year. I mean, hell, the Dodgers haven't had a complete game since last year. They've only had 2 complete games since 2022. At least Ohtani now feels comfortable throwing his curve again. He told the scribes after the game, quote, "With the doctor consultation, the number one goal was to make sure my fastball and my velocity was where I want it to be. So curveball and splitter was less of a priority going into this part of the rehab process," unquote. This matters because we had been discussing what a potential Dodger playoff rotation would look like. Would relief be a possibility? Now the belief is that the best shot is to keep him as a starter. Having said that, nobody's going on record with that. Nobody wants their name attached to that because that would send a pretty awkward message to the rest of the National League. Don't you think? That we're going to guarantee our own playoff spot while it's still August. Ha-Seong Kim is expected to rejoin the Dodgers on Monday. Whether he returns to play infield or perhaps solve the mess in outfield is another story. The Dodgers also don't appear inclined to send Max Muncy on yet another rehab assignment to the Midwest Manure Pit. The plan appears to be to have him rejoin the team next week. And honestly, I get it, right? All this time, for years, we've been sitting there just marveling at the star power at the top of the Dodger lineup. Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith. And yet Dave Roberts has been like, guys, the guy who makes this lineup really go is Max Muncy. Which sounds insane. But if you want one single reason that the Dodgers offense has mostly stunk for the last 2 months, it's because Muncy's been injured twice. As insane as it sounds, there's something to it. Muncy told the LA Daily News, quote, "I think the one thing that I always attribute it to is when I'm in there, it allows everyone to be themselves. You don't have to have a guy try to have it a bat like I usually have. I know I hit home runs and I have some power, but the big thing that I do is I make the pitcher work. That next guy doesn't have to worry about, I need to see some pitches, unquote. By the way, also with the Dodgers, the injured list isn't apparently just to work through a little owie anymore. Just ask reliever Tanner Scott. While he was down at AAA, he tweaked his delivery and as a result has rediscovered an additional 2 miles per hour in his velocity. He hasn't allowed a run since returning to the majors. Now, to be clear, I get it. He's a reliever. The sample size is way too small. I'm not trying to say he's back to being an elite closer after just 2 innings. Okay? I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that the Dodgers coaches believe he was opening his hips way too early, and that robbed him of a little speed. Instead, in Scott's words, quote, it was something so small you wouldn't really notice, and it was creating something small into something bigger, unquote. And we've been talking a lot about Dodgers coming back from injuries. Michael Kopech is actually eligible to come off the injured list now. Why he's still stuck in Oklahoma is anyone's guess. I wouldn't exile my worst enemy to that place. I'd rather send him to Uganda or something like that. There's not a lot I can add to this following little note other than to say Kings legend Anze Kopitar went on a podcast that I don't listen to and said, quote, this could be my last season in the NHL. Yes. I bring this up because we have been correcting some schlub in Canada who said it is a fact that this is Kopitar's last season. It could be, but I'm sorry that you up in the Great White North can't understand the difference between could be and will be. Have another Tim Hortons, Skippy. I want to congratulate CBSSports.com for listing one thing that can undermine every NFL team this season. Very thoughtful, very thorough. Then they said the same thing about the Rams and Chargers. Injuries. No kidding. Thanks for the insight, guys. Thanks for the insight. ESPN's Computer Geeks estimate that the Sparks have a 39.3% chance of making the playoffs with a little bit more than 2 weeks left in the WNBA regular season. Of all the teams that are left fighting for the final spots, the plus side for the Sparks is they have the most games remaining, 9, including 6 in the final 11 days of the regular season. The minus side, we've been discussing it for weeks. They don't play any defense. If they're going to make it to the playoffs, look, trust me, they're not going to learn how to play defense in 2 weeks. That ship's done sailed. If the Sparks want to end their streak of not qualifying for the playoffs, if they want to end that at 4, they're simply going to have to just run up the score on everybody and hope for the best. It's a one-dimensional team. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Are you excited that there's a freshman that's going to be lining up at wide receiver 3 for USC? For that matter, Max Muncy as the linchpin of the Dodger offense. Who knew? And if you enjoyed this update, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James, and we'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.